Alex Eala's Cincinnati campaign ended with a 3-set defeat to Amanda Anisimova, but the bigger story coming out of Ohio is not simply that Eala lost. It is what happened around that match, what the tournament revealed about her growing profile, and why the next few days could matter even more than the result itself. At just 21, Eala is no longer arriving at major tournaments as an unknown prospect. She is arriving with expectations. And that is exactly what made Cincinnati so revealing. The Filipino star walked into the Lindner Family Tennis Center carrying the attention that comes with a rapidly rising career, a demanding summer schedule, and a fan base that has followed her across the North American hard courts. By the time her campaign reached its decisive moment against Anisimova, the atmosphere surrounding Eala had become almost as significant as the tennis itself. If you are new here, welcome. And if you enjoy credible tennis coverage, take a moment to subscribe and stay with us. The first thing to understand is that Cincinnati did not exist in isolation. Eala had already endured a demanding stretch of competition, and the timing of the tournament placed another challenge directly in front of her. The North American hardcourt swing is physically demanding even for established players, and for a young athlete trying to establish herself against the best in the world, every additional match carries a cost. Eala was not simply chasing another victory. She was learning how to manage expectations while continuing to compete at an elite level. That context became particularly important when Eala faced Amanda Anisimova. The match produced the kind of scoreline that can make a story look simple from a distance, but the reality was much more complicated. Eala won the opening set and showed the aggressive tennis that has become one of the defining features of her game. She attacked from inside the court, looked for opportunities early in rallies, and made Anisimova work for nearly every important point. For a period, Eala appeared to have control of the match. Then the momentum began to move. Anisimova found a higher level, particularly in the longer exchanges, and Eala was unable to maintain the same efficiency that had carried her through the opening set. The match eventually slipped away, but that does not erase what came before it. In fact, the loss provides one of the clearest lessons from Eala's current development. Beating established opponents is one challenge, but sustaining that level through the most difficult moments of a 3-set battle is another. One of the most important moments came during a lengthy service game in the opening set. Eala had to fight through repeated pressure before finally holding, and the game demonstrated just how much physical and emotional energy can be spent on a single stretch of tennis. Those battles are valuable because they test more than technique. They test concentration, patience, decision-making, and recovery. At the highest level, a player can win the point that matters most and still pay for the effort several games later. That became relevant as the match progressed. Eala's aggressive positioning had been one of the reasons for her rise against higher-ranked opponents. She has shown that she is willing to stand close to the baseline, take the ball early, and deny opponents time. But aggressive tennis also demands precision. When timing begins to disappear, the same tactics that create pressure can produce errors. Against an opponent with Anisimova's power, those small margins become enormous. A slightly mistimed return can quickly turn into a defensive rally. Anisimova deserves credit for recognizing that shift. After dropping the first set, she did not simply wait for Eala to make mistakes. She increased the quality of her own ball striking and began finding more consistency from both wings. The match gradually became less about Eala imposing her preferred rhythm and more about whether she could adapt when that rhythm stopped working. That is an important distinction for a young player. Having a successful game plan is one thing. Knowing when to change it is another skill entirely. And that is where the Cincinnati defeat can actually become useful. Eala does not need to abandon the aggressive identity that has brought her this far. She needs more options within it. There will be nights when the first strike is landing, when the return is penetrating, and when opponents are uncomfortable from the opening ball. There will also be nights when those same shots miss by inches. The next step is learning how to remain dangerous without forcing every point. That is often the difference between a promising player and a complete one. The physical context cannot be ignored either. Eala has been navigating a busy stretch of the season, and the North American swing places enormous demands on players because of travel, changing conditions, and the sheer intensity of the schedule. At 21, she is still learning what her body can handle, and how to recognize when recovery needs to become part of the competitive strategy. A deep run is valuable, but so is knowing when another match could cost more than it gives. That is particularly relevant because the US Open is now looming over the entire conversation. Cincinnati was never going to be the final destination of Eala's summer. The bigger objective is to arrive in New York healthy, confident, and ready to compete. The Grand Slam environment is different from a regular tour event. The courts are bigger, the attention is greater, and every match carries a different level of consequence. Eala has already gained experience dealing with those pressures, and that experience could prove extremely valuable. Her relationship with Filipino supporters has added another dimension to that journey. Throughout her rise, Eala has attracted a level of national attention that few tennis players from the Philippines have experienced before. In Cincinnati, that support was visible. Filipino flags appeared in the stands, and the crowd remained invested even when the match turned against her. For Eala, those supporters are not simply background noise. They represent an entire tennis audience that has grown alongside her career. That connection was especially noticeable after the loss. The emotional reaction from the Filipino contingent was not defined only by disappointment. There was a sense that they understood what Eala had already accomplished by reaching this stage and competing with a player of Anisimova's level. For a young athlete, that kind of support can become both a source of strength and a source of pressure. The challenge is learning to appreciate the expectations without allowing them to dictate every result. Eala has generally handled that balance with unusual composure. Her media appearances have shown a player who is willing to think before answering and who does not seem desperate to manufacture a perfect image. When questions become broad or difficult, she often takes a moment before responding. That matters because professional tennis is not only about what happens between the lines. Players are constantly asked to represent themselves, their families, their countries, and their teams in public. Her connection to the Philippines has therefore become part of the story, but it should not overshadow the tennis itself. Eala's progress is significant because of what she is doing on court. She has developed the confidence to compete with players who once seemed far beyond her reach. She has improved her ranking dramatically, gained experience against established opponents, and learned how to perform in environments where the spotlight is much brighter than it was earlier in her career. That progress also explains why a Cincinnati loss can feel more important than an ordinary early round defeat. Expectations have changed. Not long ago, the conversation around Eala was about whether she could break through. Now the conversation is increasingly about how consistently she can perform at the level she has already demonstrated. That is a much harder question. One breakthrough result can announce a player. Repeating that level over months and years is what establishes a career. Her development at the Rafa Nadal Academy has also been part of that conversation. The academy has given Eala a structured environment in which technical development, competition, and professional habits can grow together. Nadal's influence has naturally attracted attention, but Eala's progress cannot simply be explained by being associated with a famous name. At the end of the day, she is the one stepping onto the court, dealing with pressure and making decisions when the match is moving against her. That distinction matters because outside expectations can become dangerous for young athletes. Once a player starts winning major matches, every tournament becomes a test of whether the previous breakthrough was real. Eala does not need to prove that every week. She needs to continue building. A difficult match against Anisimova is not evidence that her rise has stopped. It is evidence that she has reached a level where opponents are capable of exposing details in her game that she now has the opportunity to improve. There is also a tactical lesson in how Anisimova turned the match around. Eala had success when she could take control early in points, but Anisimova eventually made those first strikes less comfortable. By extending rallies and finding cleaner contact, she reduced some of the opportunities Eala normally uses to dictate play. That forced Eala into more difficult positions and increased the importance of patience. Against elite opposition, there are moments when winning the rally means refusing to rush it. That is perhaps the most valuable takeaway for Eala. Her aggressive instincts should remain part of her identity, but the next stage of her development may involve adding another gear. Sometimes she will need to attack immediately. Sometimes she will need to build the point. Sometimes she will need to step back and allow an opponent to make the first move. Those choices become increasingly important as a player moves higher in the rankings because opponents become better at neutralizing predictable patterns. The physical side of the game will be equally important. A demanding schedule can create a difficult cycle. Success brings more matches, more travel, and more attention, which creates additional pressure on recovery. Young players often discover that managing their calendar is almost as important as managing their technique. Eala is now entering that stage. The question is no longer whether she can compete. She has already shown that. The question is how she can remain competitive while protecting the body that makes the entire career possible. That is why the period between Cincinnati and the US Open deserves attention. Recovery is not a passive part of professional tennis. It is preparation. The work done away from the court can determine whether a player arrives at a Grand Slam feeling fresh or carrying the accumulated fatigue of the previous month. Eala and her team will have to assess what her body needs, what aspects of her game require attention, and how much intensity makes sense before the biggest tournament of the summer. The psychological side may be even more interesting. Eala has experienced both sides of the spotlight in a very short period. She has dealt with breakthrough victories, increased media attention, national expectations, and the disappointment of matches that slipped away. That experience can become an advantage. A player who has already learned that one loss does not define a tournament is better equipped to handle the emotional swings that come with Grand Slam tennis. There is another reason Cincinnati matters. Eala is gradually moving from being the player opponents underestimate to being the player they prepare for. That transition is subtle but significant. When a player first breaks through, opponents may know the name but not fully understand the patterns. As results accumulate, scouting becomes deeper. Players study tendencies, return positions, favorite patterns, and weaknesses. Eala will increasingly face opponents who arrive with a plan specifically designed to disrupt her. That means the next phase will demand constant adaptation. Her forehand, backhand, and return game can continue improving, but tactical flexibility will become just as important. If opponents expect her to stand inside the baseline, she may occasionally need to change the geometry of the rally. If they anticipate an aggressive return, she can vary depth and placement. The goal is not to become a completely different player. It is to make the existing player harder to solve. And that is why the Cincinnati defeat should not be viewed simply as a missed opportunity. Yes, Eala had a chance to advance. Yes, she held an early advantage. Yes, there were stretches when the match appeared to be within her control. But professional sport does not provide progress only through victories.